Alright, let's work on converting between the odds in favor or against something happening and the probability that something will happen. So these are related but different concepts, and it can be sort of confusing, but it doesn't need to be confusing. So let's just deal with something concrete. We're gonna roll a die, this one, um, and so let's calculate first just the probability of something happening. So rolling a 4. So we'll look at that. That'll be our event. So what's the probability of rolling a 4? The probability of rolling a 4. So probability is the number of favorable outcomes, the kind of outcome that you're interested in, over the total number of possible outcomes. So in this case, how many favorable outcomes do I have? Well, just one. There's only one side of the die that has the number 4 on it. So there's only one way to roll a 4. So the probability of rolling a 4 will be 1 over something. Now, what's the total number of possible outcomes? Well, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different outcomes that are possible when I roll a die. There's 6 different sides that could be face up. So the probability of rolling a 4 will be 1. There's only one side that's the number 4 out of 6 possible outcomes. All right. Now, what about the odds in favor of rolling a 4? So the odds in favor is the probability that that thing will happen over the probability that it won't happen. Okay, so we just calculated the probability that it will happen. The probability of rolling a 4 is 1 over 6. Now what about the probability that you won't roll a 4? In other words, what's the probability that you'll roll anything but a 4? So, i.e., a 1, a 2, a 3, a 5, or a 6. So probability is the number of favorable outcomes over the number of possible outcomes. So how many favorable outcomes are there? How many numbers aren't the number 4? Well, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 numbers that aren't the number 4. So those are favorable outcomes. So if you're calculating the probability of not rolling the number 4, there's 5 outcomes that would mean that you didn't roll a 4. What about total possible outcomes? Again, 6. There's 6 sides of the die that could be face up. So the odds in favor of rolling a 4 are 1 over 6 divided by 5 over 6. Now this looks a little complicated, but the nice thing is, since these fractions have the same denominator, what we can say is that this is 1 over 5. Basically, the denominators cancel out there. So the odds in favor of rolling a 4 are 1 over 5. So now notice something here. The number of favorable outcomes here and the number of favorable outcomes here, if you add them together, you get what? You get the number of possible outcomes. Right? So we'll use that fact to convert between odds and probability. So what you would do is something like this. Okay, so let's look at this one. The odds of something happening are 4 to 1 in favor. Okay, so if we were to look at it in this kind of a format, it's 4 over something divided by 1 over something. Now, if we were to take these two numerators and add them together, just like we did here, 4 plus 1, that's 5. So our probability will be something over 5. We take the two numbers and the odds, and we add them up to get the total possible outcomes for probability. So something over 5. Now, the odds are 4 to 1 in favor. So that means the top fraction over here would be the probability that it will happen. So 4 to 1 in favor, that means that the probability would be 4 over 5. If this were 4 to 1 against, I would pick the 1 and put a 1 over here. Alright, let's go the other way. We'll keep working on this until it finally clicks. So we're starting with probability. And I have it here written in ratio form. Let's write it as a fraction. Okay, so the probability of something happening is 3 to 11. So 3 favorable outcomes over 11 possible outcomes. Um, um, okay, so um, so let's do the odds in favor. So the odds in favor would be the probability that it will happen, which we're given with here. So 3 over 11 divided by the probability that it won't happen. So if there's 3 favorable outcomes out of 11 possible outcomes, there must be 8 non-favorable outcomes, or 8 ways in which this thing could not happen. Just like back up here, if there's a 1 out of 6 probability that I'll roll a 4, then there's a 5 out of 6 probability that I won't roll a 4. So here we've got 3 over 11 over, and then the odds, or the probability of it not happening would be 8 out of 11, because 8 plus 3 is 11. Now, same denominator, so we can reduce this, simplify this to 3 over 8. See, odds in favor of this thing happening, whatever it is 3 over 8. Now, if you want to do against, you could do 8 over 3 against. Just reverse the numbers. Okay, let's try another odds. Starting with odds, go to probability. So our probability will be 3 plus something over 3 plus 2. So something over 5. Now, these are odds against. So odds against are the probability that something won't happen over the probability that it will. So if I have 3 to 2 against, then I'm going to select the 2 here to put it over over the number of possible outcomes. So the probability of this thing happening would be 2 over 5. Now let's try one more. Probability of 1 to 5, or 1 over 5. Okay, so odds in favor. Let's stick with odds in favor. And if you ever need to convert between odds in favor and odds against, you just reverse them, flip them over. So let's turn this into the odds in favor of this thing happening. So the probability that it'll happen is 1 over 5. So 1 favorable outcome over 5 total possible outcomes. So the odds in favor would be 1 over 5 divided by, so we're given the probability that it will occur. So odds are the probability that will occur over the probability that won't occur. So we're given that, 1 over 5. Now what's the probability that it won't occur? Well, if I've got 1 favorable outcome out of 5 possible outcomes, then there must be 4 outcomes that are non-favorable. Or so if there's 1 favorable outcome here out of the 5 possible, 4 of those outcomes would mean that this thing doesn't happen. So my probability that it won't happen would be 4 out of 5. Now same denominator here, so I can simplify this to be 1 over 4 in favor.